I went to sleep as normal. When I came back into consciousness, I was in a different reality. And it wasn't a dream because it was hyper real. I mean, when you're in alternate dimensions, it's more real than the 3D. I do believe that we're shifting back to our original template. Earth is already ascending. It's not even a question. That indicates that we're moving out of the third dimension into the fourth and fifth dimensions. When you're in the fourth and fifth dimensions, details and colors become more brilliant. And then you're able to see different realities. You're able to see auras around things. You're able to telepathically communicate with all kinds of things, not just animals and humans, but also trees and plants and rocks and I don't know, anything really. Everything has a consciousness.
Debbie Solaris, welcome on Just Tap In. What are you most excited about right now in your life?
Gosh, I'm just excited about how everything is accelerating. Our ascension is accelerating. People are waking up and they're empowering themselves to their truth and not really standing for the status quo anymore. They're creating their own fifth dimensional realities. And that's part of my mission, is to help facilitate that, with the work that I do. And I feel like I play just a very small part, but I think every component is important, so my part of it is to help remind people who we are and where we came from, and who are the civilizations that we were connected with before. But I do want to emphasize that the work I do isn't just based in past knowledge, even though some people might see Akashic Records as just, you're just, looking at past lives, how does that help me today? A lot of who we were in our soul journeys contribute to who we are today. And once we unlock the key of that, then it becomes, I would say, a very activating for a lot of people, that they're able to, step into who they truly are and be able to move forward with the missions that they have chosen while they're here on Earth. So thank you for allowing me to share that. And I'll let you take it over and do your Emilio Ortiz thing, So I'm just I'm the co-pilot in your little starship. So
Beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
And I know you are one of the most highly requested Akashic Records readers. And, through a series of different people that you've worked with, you've uncovered many unique experiences, let's say. One of the ones that we're talking about, it's not just the past, but also you've been connecting with some souls that have time traveled to be here from the future.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about those souls in particular. What are they here to remind us?
Yeah, no, I love those types of readings because it just goes to show you that I think this static idea of linear time that I think a lot of us here on Earth have are not really that, it's not the only process here. There's a lot of different pathways to being here. Let me just talk about a couple of individuals I had the great joy of doing readings for. I'm not going to share their names or anything. I always try to keep my clients confidential, their information. But I had a client, she was a younger gal, a Gen Zer like yourself, who lived in Alaska. And she wanted to have a reading with me. And so we decided to do an Akashic reading. And I just loved her energy. She just had this really I don't know, just very bubbly, optimistic energy about her. But I didn't really pick up the typical star systems with her. I was just kind of like, well, her energy is great, but it's different. Whenever I do an Akashic reading, I also read auras. So I'm not just tapping into the records. I'm also connecting my heart space with that person's heart space, and so I'm looking at their auric field. And so I just kept seeing, this really different auric field. And when I tapped into the records for her, I kept going to the past and I didn't see any past lives for her. I mean, not even off world. And I was like, what the heck? So I kept looking forward and I was like, oh my gosh, this girl's from the future. She's never had any past lives because she's not from the past. She's from the future. And when I was tapping in, I realized that she was from the Yael. A lot of people, I think, have heard the terminology Yael, but maybe they don't quite understand what that means. And the Yael race is actually a hybridized human race that is human genetics, Earth human genetics, hybridized with Pleiadian, gray alien, a multitude, maybe Arcturian, Syrian, a multitude of extraterrestrial genetics. And this girl came from Earth, but she was Yael. So she was actually a hybridized race from the future. And her mission, after, a little while, exploring her records, her mission was partially to change the timelines here. Because there are possibilities that we can go towards this Armageddon like timeline where Earth explodes into World War III, and then everything gets destroyed, and that's the timeline that I think a lot of us that our star seeds are trying to prevent right now. But so that was part of her mission, and the other part of her mission was to heal the land. So it was interesting that she lives in Alaska, where there's fracking and everything else going on there. So she was there to heal the land. And I remember her being so excited when I told her that I don't see past lives for you. You're not from the past. You're somebody that's from the future. So she was an example of and she was just a very joyful client. Like, she was just really excited to start her mission. She was only like 19 or 20. I mean, she was really young, and she was super excited to start her mission. The other client that I had that was also from the future was from the Asasani race, which is a race that a lot of people associate Bashar with,
For
so
sure. Yeah.
yeah. So, and it was the same thing. She was older lady. So she was a lady that was probably, I would say, according to Dolores Cannon, was first wave, I mean, just quite a bit older, like maybe late 60s or early 70s, as far as her age. And she, unlike the younger gal that I did the reading for, she was always confused about herself. She didn't remember anything. She was confused, she was depressed. And so I looked into her records. And it was kind of a similar scenario where I couldn't see any past lives. And I told her, you have a lot of gray alien genetics, and let me take a look at what your connections are. And I didn't necessarily saw that she was a gray alien. She was actually Asasani, and she too was from the future. And she too had a mission to time travel back to the past in order to change the timelines, but she didn't remember her mission at all. I mean, she just didn't. Unlike the first girl, who was, it was like she was excited. She really tapped into the information I was giving her. This lady was a little, I guess, I think she felt a connection with the information I was giving her, but she just didn't feel excited about her mission. that she sometimes wondered if she made a mistake coming back because she had a hard time remembering. But she did receive a lot of healing from the session that she had with me, where at least some of the puzzle pieces for her were, falling into place, were okay. Now, I understand why I always felt disconnected or why I didn't feel like anything in this reality made sense to me, So she came to, I think, some resignation or resolution with the information that was presented to her in the record. So those were the two cases I could think of that kind of follows what you were asking about, and they had their similarities, but also very different. And in some ways, I would say the civilization, the races were a little different. Whereas the Asasani is predominantly Earth, human, and gray alien mix. The Yael has a mix of different star systems. So there might be some influences from those star genetics that might have influenced the younger clients. But thank you for bringing that up. It's two of my favorite readings, actually, because it caused me,
Wow.
in a way, to, I think, stretch my Akashic muscles, so to speak. Because I think a
And your
lot of times,
perception of time.
yeah, totally. Yeah, no, because I tend to do readings. When I was still doing personal readings for people, I don't do them anymore because I moved on to doing more public appearances. But when I was still doing readings, I always did them in kind of a linear fashion, so I'd always look at the past because most of us had past lives, most of us had a progression to this point. So, having those types of readings where I'm looking at walk-in, souls or, souls that are from the future, like the two ladies I was telling you about, that really causes me to change my perspective on how I'm doing readings, because it's not always just, oh, okay, we're here on Earth and we had this long history in other star systems before we came here to Earth. I even done readings for people that were walk-ins. They were from different universes. They were a walk-in soul, and they were from a different dimension. So they weren't necessarily a starseed, but they were some higher dimensional being from a different dimension. I've done readings for people that were avian beings that came from an alternate universe. And that one was an interesting story too. But I've done readings for people from different aspects of reality, and I think it just goes to hone in that there is no linear time, that all of us are experiencing a lot of these lifetimes simultaneously, and we're all multidimensional beings, so we might be connected with alternate dimensional aspects of ourselves, even in alternate realities. So
Yeah.
thank you for asking me that. That's such a
Yeah.
fun way to start off this discussion.
Yeah, and to be able to do this type of work, it really, encourages you to empty your mind cup of what you believed about reality, because it's like, oh, get ready for the quantum, because in the quantum, anything is possible,
No,
limitless
absolutely.
possibilities.
Yeah.
And you've been coined the Galactic Historian.
Mm.
And that is a title that is very interesting because I am someone that is fascinated with history, ancient history. Now, if we're moving off planet and seeing other galactic wars and different things, and I imagine now you're beginning to tie together a story and put together the puzzle pieces, as you mentioned. Where does that story begin for you in what you've explored in your readings and in your information that you're getting from the Akashic Records? Where does the story of creation really begin, of physical creation?
Yeah, that's a great question. Like I said, we're multidimensional beings and we live in a multi-universe reality. So each universe goes through this process of separation from source, and So a lot of times when I'm tapping into the records, I'm just tapping into mostly this universe's story because this is the universe we live in. It's like it doesn't
That's the relevant one.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter what happened in other universes unless it relates to our universe. And there are universes that have impacted our universe, and sometimes that does come up in readings. But so I would say it starts with our universe's turn to be separated from source frequency. And so I don't know why. I mean, I guess maybe source wanted to have this experimentation and expansion, and so that's why a lot of us have expanded into individual souls in order to have as multitude of experiences as possible. But to get back to your question, I would say, at least for those of us that are here in the Milky Way, our story started in Andromeda Galaxy. Um, so initially, when we started our descent away from source and towards physical realities, uh, initially our backdrop was supposed to be Andromeda Galaxy, but Andromeda Galaxy is just too high vibrational to sustain physical life. So the beings that are in Andromeda Galaxy are light beings. They do have beings. They do have ethereal beings that are part of the Andromeda Galaxy Soul Group, and they're co-creator beings, but they don't have physical bodies or they don't live on a planet. They just kind of live in the galaxy. And these beings, quickly realized, we can't do this experiment here. We got to figure out a way to do it in another location. So they created the Milky Way. So a lot of people think that, okay, the Milky Way is one galaxy and the Andromeda Galaxy is another galaxy. But actually, the Milky Way was birthed from the Andromeda Galaxy. So that's why I call Andromeda Galaxy the mother galaxy, because it was the mother of this galaxy. And they created it to be maybe like a mini version of the Andromeda Galaxy, but with lower dimensionality so that physical life could be sustained. And to me, it's like the beings that created this, they were geniuses. I mean, they were amazing. I mean, it's like, who would think of this? It was just amazing. And they even created a portal. I mean, so if you talk about, I would say, time and space, the Andromeda Galaxy is 2 million light years from the Milky Way, and it's our closest galaxy. So when you think about how big the universe is, it's huge. I mean, it's
Huge.
beyond comprehension. So the Andromeda Galaxy group realized this and realized they had to create like a shortcut, like a portal between the two galaxies because they were kind of going back and forth. And so they created the Antares Stargate. That's the first Stargate that was created in this galaxy, the Milky Way galaxy. And Antares is the biggest star in the Scorpio constellation. And it's located very close to what is considered galactic center in the Milky Way, which is between Scorpio and Sagittarius. It's actually located at 28 degrees Sagittarius. So it's kind of almost right in between those two constellations. And that was where the galactic councils were created. So these galactic councils kind of hung out in this galactic center. It's called the Hunab-Ku by the Mayans, and the great spiritual sun, or, the galactic center, whatever you want to call it. There's many names for this location, but so these beings decided to create physical reality, and they chose the Lyra system because Lyra was located fairly close to galactic center. And it had the conditions most favorable for physical life. And that's true even today. Like a lot of people don't realize is sometimes science supports spirituality, So I was reading this article in cosmos.com that talked about the 10 exoplanets that could be inhabitable. So I was like, because I have a science background, so I like to read scientific articles, and I was super curious, so I was like, well, let me read this. And I was saying that list, about 5 of the planets were located, the exoplanets they were talking about was still located in Lyra.
Yeah, I saw that article you posted it on your website. We'll put
Yeah.
the link in so people can check.
Yeah, no, we need to put that link in. So, and then I think some of them were in Proxima Centauri and some were in other locations, but I was really impressed because the records were always showing me like, oh yeah, they created it here because it was, it was favorable for human and sentient life, and it was like, oh, now science kind of proves it. So even though there were planets that were destroyed during the Lyran Draconian Wars, there's still existing planets in the Lyra constellation. Um, so you never know what might happen in the future. And I did see a future timeline where this was like us in the future, like all of us that were part of this great experiment. That we ended up going back to Lyra and Vega, and we were recreating the Paradise planets there. So that's
Wow.
so
How
if
far into the future we did
I
you
don't
look
know,
into
I
that
couldn't see
potential?
the timeline. I think it's not like super close in the future. I think it's maybe
Hmm.
like, I don't know, thousands and thousands of years, maybe tens of thousands of years from now, but that's our reality. And actually, Vega, the biggest star in Lyra, is used to be Earth's North Star. I mean, at one time it was aligned with the Earth North Pole axis, and now Polaris. Actually, for a while, Thuban, which is in Draco, was our North Star, which is kind of freaky when you think about that, because we had the dinosaur age for a while on planet Earth, and then Polaris is now our North Star, but eventually it's going to shift back to Vega. So this is the representation of Earth's realignment with the original human template, which was created in the Lyra system. Lyra is known as the home of human consciousness because that was where at least humanity in our universe began, or at least in our part of the universe. So I would say most of the root races, our founder races that were extraterrestrial, originated from Lyra, or had some Lyran genetics, down. So, and there was two human races. So a lot of people think, oh, all these beings look Caucasian, and it's like, no, there was some of the beings looked Caucasian, some of them looked like blue skinned beings. They looked like, I don't know, Indians from India, or they were darker skinned beings. So that's where the darker skin genetics came from. I get that question a lot from people, like, how come you never talk about dark skinned people? And I say, I talk about dark skinned people all the time. It's just that in alternate star systems, their skin are no longer brown, they're blue. That's, so the blue skin genetic lend itself to the brown skin genetics. So I do talk about it a lot, but I'm not going to call it out and say, "Oh yeah, this is where African genetics came from." I mean, unless you directly ask me that, um, but yes, a lot of the darker skin genetics originated from Vega, which is the biggest star in the Lyra system. And they were considered to be the mother goddess consciousness. So they were the first humans that were created. So they were even a little more advanced than the white Lyrans. The white Lyrans were more like your, I don't know, father god consciousness beings. They had more of a direct energy, whereas the blue Vegans were more receptive. They were more spiritually oriented beings. So that's how everything kind of started, and so everything was beautiful. So I mean, co-creators, they went big or they went home. They were creating beautiful paradise planets. I mean, they were amazing planets. And they had cat beings and avian beings and all kinds of beings that lived in these, elementals. So it might have been a lot like living in Lord of the Rings. I don't know, but these were beautiful planets, and they existed for thousands and thousands of years before they got destroyed by the Draconians. So these beings were living in unity consciousness for a long time, and then everything got disrupted when the Draconians attacked them. Just a little backdrop on the Draconians. So my understanding from I always thought Draconians were from Draco. I mean, so when I was starting to do some research in the records, I discovered, oh, Draconians aren't originally from Draco. They're originally from an alternate universe. They got kicked out of that universe and they got deposited here. So no wonder they were pissed off. So my understanding from the records is that these draconian beings in the different universe got into a war with some avian like beings, and the avian beings had this really advanced uh, frequency laden technology that enabled them to just take these beings and just transport them to another universe. I mean, I don't know that. I kind of question sometimes, like, what were they thinking? Because that's a direct violation of free will,
Free
in a
will.
way,
Yeah.
So I
Big. Let
don't
me
know
just
what they.
drop you off in another
I
universe.
know they just
See
dropped
how.
them off, like, okay, here you go. You're somebody else's problem children now, So I was just like, wow, what's this, But I think they acknowledged that they made a big mistake, and so there were avian beings that were actually coming through that Antares portal to try to make things right. I've seen that trend over and over and over again in the records that they were trying to maybe, if not change the timelines, at least adjust the timelines, so that they can maybe right the wrongs of what they did. But I mean, to kick somebody out, not just from their home, but from their universe, that's pretty extreme, So, um, but um, but these beings in Draco, there was a caste system. So there was not just your typical reptilians that, the warrior caste, as I call them. Although they were the ones that caused all the problems. There was dragon beings that were more benign. So dragon beings are not necessarily good or evil. They don't have, they kind of more of the neutral polarity. And a lot of people feel connection with dragons, so dragons also have their place in our history,
Did they
but they
ever
weren't the ones.
inhabit Earth? The
What's that?
dragons? Did they ever inhabit the Earth?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they did.
Hmm.
That's why so many people have soul memories of interacting with dragons, because
Yeah.
they did inhabit Earth. They were some of the greatest teachers here on planet Earth. I think that's why so many cultures revere dragons, like Chinese and the Celtic cultures, and even where you're from, South America, they revered the winged serpents, so these were dragon beings that they were, um, so they are known throughout Earth, and I think modern Christianity, or even, Christianity from the Middle Ages, were trying to wipe out that memory. They didn't want us being connected with anything that connected us to our galactic heritage. So they told us that dragons were made up,
Myth.
like a lot of these
Yeah.
beings were made up, and that's not the case. Unicorns are real. A lot of these mythological creatures were real. I mean, it was, um, I don't think human imagination is that good that they would just totally just make up these beings. I don't know, but yeah, I would say definitely, the dragons were on Earth. I don't think they stayed on Earth. I think probably around the time when people stopped believing in them, they figured, we're just going to be persecuted. Why even, because you hear all these stories about Saint George killing the dragon, and but um, so they just decided to, shift into another dimension. So
Yeah.
I think the dragon
Are they
beings.
still supporting us at
Oh
this time?
yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, I have a lot of clients who have dragon guides, and I think they're supporting us from afar, but they're not as involved as they were in the past.
Mm.
Um, but I do think on some level, they do try to help out. Dragon beings are neutral in their polarity, so they will sometimes help and sometimes they won't. And they have their own reasons, so it's not like, oh, I can just call in a dragon and, they're just going to magically appear. I mean, I know a lot of people have that imagery. Um, they do things for their own purposes, so it's got to benefit them as well, to some level. But I would say there's, been dragons in throughout history, and, throughout, connections people have with them that, lean more towards the positive polarity, and the same with the elemental beings. I recently did a webinar on elementals. It was like one of my most requested. I'm not like a big elemental person. At least I didn't think I was until I started doing research on elementals. And I was just really impressed with, gosh, these beings are amazing. It's like, and because I kept seeing elementals over and over again in the Akashic records. And so I was like, I need to look into this elemental thing, because I,
Who are they?
their elementals are. They're kind of like physical representations of the elements. So you would have like fire elementals and water elementals and earth elementals and air elementals. And so a mermaid would be an example of a water elemental. A gnome would be an example of an earth elemental. Fairies and pixies would be a representation of air elementals, and a salamander would be like a fire elemental. And so these beings were mainly created to with I would say the maintain the frequencies in order for physical reality to keep in alignment. So I saw elementals in Lyra. I saw quite a few of them in Lyra. I saw elementals in Sirius, elementals in the Pleiades, So it's like, wow, these beings have been around for a long time. I mean, for millions and millions of years. And here on Earth, we just kind of chalked them up to being children's stories, or they're just like, fairy tales, and they're more than just fairy tales. I mean, elementals were intrinsically important in maintaining the environment in these physical planets, and they were mostly, I would say, soul shards of energy that came from the Andromeda group, the Andromeda galaxy group, so these beings, when the Andromeda Galaxy group decided, hey, I think I want to experience physical life, but I don't necessarily want to be a humanoid, they would, incarnate as an elemental. And
Mm.
not all of them are like teeny tiny, like, Tinkerbell in the Disney movies, So a lot of us have this imagery of fairies as being like that big, and maybe some of them are that big, or maybe they make themselves that big, so they can interact with us. But actually, the fairies I saw in Lyra were big. I mean, they were
Mm.
tall. They were very elongated and tall, um, so they do come in different shapes and sizes and things
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah.
But I have great respect for the elementals now. I feel like, gosh, I want to connect with them more.
Yeah.
I
They're holding this physical reality in place in a
They
way.
are, yeah, they are.
Hmm.
And it's interesting that they're the representations of fire, air, water, and earth, and actually even more elements than just that. So there's some dragons. So speaking, going back to the dragons, dragons are also considered elemental beings, but unlike, I would say, some of the other elementals, they're able to span multitude of elements. So you'll see dragons that are, metal dragons, or dragons that are ice dragons, or so they just span, the different elements, and sometimes I think dragons are the only ones that can change elements at will, which is interesting. But
They're
uh,
like the real avatar.
yeah, like an avatar. Yeah, they are. So they're kind of like a super elemental, but unicorns are also an elemental being. So unicorns actually originated from the ninth dimension in Lyra. And a lot
Mm.
of people don't know this, but it wasn't just cat beings that came from Lyra. So unicorns came from Lyra, and unicorns used to be real too until, like the dragons, they kind of shifted out of the 3D because they were going to be persecuted. So they were just like, you know what, we're not going to be just killed off. We're going to shift, and maybe we'll come back when things are more aligned with our frequency. But
Yeah.
these
Is that what is happening now?
yeah, I do believe so. Yeah. I do believe that we're shifting back to our original template. Like I was mentioning before, how Earth eventually is going to get realigned with Vega. That's what that Vega is eventually going to be our North Star again. That's what's happening. We're preparing ourselves. So Earth is going to ascend whether people ascend or not. So Earth is already ascending. It's not even a question. It's You can tell, I think, even just day to day, I look outside, just in my little environment here, and I'm like, wow, the sun looks white. Remember how the sun used to always look yellow? And I look now and it's like the sun is white and everything's really bright. And the details of leaves and of the trees are much more crisp and clear. The colors are more brilliant, like the greens are really green. The sky looks really, really blue, unless there's chemtrails all over it. but, but I mean, we're just seeing this intensification of colors and details that indicates that we're moving out of the third dimension into the fourth and fifth dimensions. Now, when you're in the fourth and fifth dimensions, details and colors become more brilliant. And then you're able to see, different realities. You're able to see auras around things. You're able to telepathically communicate with all kinds of things, not just animals, and humans, but also trees and plants and rocks, and I don't know, anything really. Everything has a
Yeah.
consciousness.
And your psychic perception was, as you say, it was increased 100-fold when you were in 2012. You sent out a prayer to the universe asking for assistance. And then 2 weeks later, you go to sleep, you wake up in an alternate, dimension, realer than this physical reality, and you're surrounded by these Arcturian beings.
Yeah, that
Going a
was
little bit deeper
breathtaking.
into
Yeah, that
what
was
actually happened to you and what you were learning, because you said that you were there because they wanted you to remember why you were here on Earth and what was going on the planet right now.
yeah. Oh,
So
absolutely.
I would love to open up, going even deeper into that experience, how it influenced your perception, and now you're able to see, all of these different things, tap into the records, see auras around you. That was a big turning point for you.
Oh, it was. I was an ordinary, unawakened human for the first 50 years of my life. So I didn't have, I think I always had a mild interest in spirituality, but that got beaten out of me. I was raised Roman Catholic, and I remember, you know, the priests and, the nuns. I went to Catholic school for a while, and they were telling me that, astrology was evil and, reading tarot cards were evil, um, so I just didn't, delve into that much until I would say I had kind of a mild awakening with my now husband because he was really interested in the paranormal and he would read articles about UFOs and ETs and so that was kind of like a soft disclosure thing for me as far as, okay, maybe this is a possibility because before that, I didn't believe in UFOs. I didn't believe in extraterrestrials at all. I mean, I just thought it was all made up. And then I think just through reading some of my, husband's reading material, it kind of expanded me to at least consider the possibility that things like that might exist. And then one day, I don't know, I was just in bed, I couldn't go to sleep, and I was worried about the state of the planet. And I just sent this prayer out asking for divine assistance for the planet. I just thought, this planet is in a world of hurt. We need some help here. And so I sent this prayer out to every single higher dimensional being I can think of, angels, ascended masters, galactic brothers and sisters, even though I didn't really believe in galactic brothers and
Whoever's out there,
whoever's out there,
we
I'm
need
sending
you.
this prayer out, and so the next day, the things were normal, and I didn't really think about the prayer much. I forgot all about it, and then 2 weeks later, like you mentioned, I went to sleep as normal. When I came back into consciousness, I was in a different reality. And it wasn't a dream because it was hyper real. I mean, when you're in alternate dimensions, it's more real than the 3D. And so when you're exposed to that, and I think this happens also to a lot of near death experiencers, is that they come back to 3D reality and they go through this period of depression, because they got exposed to these higher frequencies and now they're back to the denser frequencies that are not so fun. But so I knew that something was going on, and I kept looking around. It looked like a starship, but I was a little confused because my exposure to starships, they were always metallic looking. When you watch these sci-fi movies, they always look really metallic and they look like they were constructed, like they were built. These didn't look like that. This ship I was on looked like it was comprised of light and it was some sort of material, but very fluid. It was very organic, if you want to call it that. And so
The
I
ship
knew
had its own consciousness in a
it
way.
did. Yeah, totally. Yeah, it did. And the ship it was kind of leading me towards a space, like it was, because I knew it was like, okay, this is not no ordinary ship because it's like tuning into my thoughts and it's telling me to go to the space, and it was like a series of lights or something. I don't know. It was technology I've never even seen, and then I was just following it along. I didn't know. I was just like, okay, I'm here. I'm going to do what the ship's telling me to do. But and then I was in this big room, and that's where it led me to. And there was these Arcturian beings that were waiting for me there. And I didn't really know what these beings were at first. I knew they weren't from Earth. I mean, it was pretty obvious. But I didn't know who they were or what they were. I just immediately knew that they weren't evil or bad. You read some of these articles about gray aliens and they're abducting people and doing experiments. And I immediately got the sense that these beings weren't like that. They didn't look like gray aliens and they weren't, they had beautiful big auras. It was hard to even look at them because their auras were so bright. But just looking at them, I knew they weren't from Earth. And I was formulating questions in my head to ask them. And even as I was formulating the questions in my head, they were answering my questions in telepathy. So they were telepathically connecting with me. So So I had like this running conversation with them, like, okay, what's really going on here on Earth? What's the deal with religion? What's the deal with politics? Why is there so much suffering? And they patiently answered all my questions. And the thing they kept telling me over and over again is that we live in the simulated reality that's not really real. It's an illusion. And that really confused the heck out of me at the time because I was like, what are they talking about? Illusion? Things on Earth are really real. Like I could touch my desk, I could touch things, it's not like it's an illusion. Now I think I have a better understanding what they meant, but back then I was really confused. I was like, "What the heck are they talking about?" And then they were talking about, because I kept asking them, "Why me? I'm just a stupid human. I'm not anybody special. I'm just this dumb human." That doesn't know what's going on and spent most of her life just doing what other people thought was best for her, uh, and they told me that I was part of their family, that I was a soul that originated from their star system, and that I had chosen to be here on a mission, but I had forgotten my mission, like as you mentioned. I had forgotten it. And I they didn't really tell me what my mission was, which I kind of like I think they wanted
Go
me
figure
to,
it out.
yeah, you need to figure it out. We're not going to tell you, because that would be an infringement on free will. Now I understand that. And I did ask them, I think, why don't you guys interfere more, try to help more people out? And they said it's because of the universal law of non-interference. They can't really interfere with choices that Earth humans make. Now, if Earth humans directly ask them for help, they can choose to help us. But the thing that they did impart on me was that they said, we noticed that you live in fear a lot, and um, they said there's nothing to fear. Everything is under control. And they said that you and your family are all protected. And I was like, "What? You mean my Earth family?" And they kind of laughed. And I then realized, oh, they weren't just talking about my Earth family, they were talking about my spiritual family. So all the light workers and star seeds that were all protected. So at that point, I think my whole perspective on life changed because I lived most of my life in fear. I had a traumatic childhood, I had traumatic experiences. I was I knew I wasn't living in a safe planet, but especially for women. But once they told me that I was protected, I felt like, gosh, these beings are magnificent. They have this really advanced technology. What do I have to fear? It's like, I'm protected. So my whole perspective changed after that. And then I noticed that, so I had two of those experiences in 2012, as you probably read on my website. The first one was in May, and the second one was in December. The December one was on board the same ship, but I was interacting with Pleiadian beings, and they were giving me more personal information that pertained to my family or certain members of my family, and what they were going through. And one individual that was a friend of mine, I think she was trying to contact the Pleiadians, and they said, "Oh, we've been receiving her messages, but she hasn't been receiving ours because her frequency isn't aligned yet."
Huh.
So it's
That's a
kind of,
good point you're making there, Deb,
yeah,
because
yeah.
a lot of us maybe tuning into this really interested about making that contact
Hmm.
with other galactic beings or even our galactic family. That concept of what you're saying is the frequency is not there yet. What
Exactly.
needs to happen to match them to be able to start that conversation?
That's a great question. It's one I thought about a lot, actually. Because I always ask, like, why me? I was unawakened, But I think because I sent out that prayer, that raised my frequency. Like, I showed all this concern. I wanted to be of service to other beings, And then even before I said that prayer, I was volunteering as an animal assisted therapy team every weekend, every free time I had. So I still was working a 40-hour job a week, but I was part of an animal assisted therapy team with my cat Piglet, who I found out later was actually a Pleiadian soul that was had a contract with, you know. So she was like my teacher. She was teaching me how to be of service to others, and I didn't realize this until later. But I adopted this cat, and I realized, oh my gosh, this cat is unusual. I mean, I was able to take her anywhere, and she would be like just chilling, you know, like okay. And she was very conscious of where she was, and she was
It's
interacting with
my
me.
dog as well.
Yeah,
She's
I know
like
your dog's
tapped
probably.
in. I'm like,
I know it's like that. We got these starseed animals, you know. So I was. So one day I was watching a show on Animal Planet that I don't know if that channel still exists. Maybe it does, but it was a show about therapy animals, and I thought, geez, that's something Piglet and I can do. And then I did some research, and I found out the American Humane Association in Denver was teaching those courses, and so we signed up for it. And Piglet, she passed with flying colors. I was the one that needed more training than she did. She got it down. And then started doing work with. I think we first started off with Alzheimer's wards and nursing homes and assisted living homes, and then we did the Pause to Read program at the library. We also did some other programs where we were assisting mentally handicapped adults and physically handicapped children. And then eventually we got signed up with the American Red Cross, and we started doing the Wounded Warrior projects and on Fort Carson, which is one of the military bases in Colorado. So we did a lot of work in 6 years. I mean, so I think just the fact that I was doing this like all the time raised my frequency. So it
being in
indicated,
service.
yeah, I'm willing to be of service to humanity, with no reward. I was doing this totally on my own time, wasn't being paid or anything like that. So I think that in itself maybe raised my frequency enough to be able to interact with these extraterrestrial beings. And so that's a lesson for a lot of us that want to have that connection with higher dimensional beings, is you got to meet them halfway. They're not going to just pull you out of out of the dredges of 3D density. You got to exhibit some willingness to be of service and to be and it's not that I was all that great or anything like that. I almost did this like on autopilot, like I kind of got led into it, but it did enable me to connect with my star family. So I hope that there's a little lesson in there for somebody that might be, watching this and thinking, gosh, I really want to connect with my family. I want to, you know, interact with my guides or my angels or my star ET family, so that's one way to do it. Meditation's another way. So when I was first starting, after I was awakened, I kept asking my guides, like, how do I connect with you? And they kept telling me, meditate every day. And I was like, I hate meditating. And then they sent me to study meditation with the Zen Buddhist monks because um, I needed to meditate, needed to learn to appreciate it. Now I appreciate it. I wouldn't say I'm the best person at meditation, but I do get some beautiful insights when I do focus and meditate. And I do it every day. It's like a mantra for me now. Every day I connect. And when you connect within yourself, you're connecting with your divine aspect of yourself. So that's why meditation is so important.
Yeah. And you also went through a radical health transformation. You lost 75 pounds over that at this point. You said that you set the intention in the Akashic Records to make that transition.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to know how us setting intentions in the records can help us accelerate our path to the desires that we want or the outcomes that we are desiring in our life. What was that process for you like?
Well, I've done quite a few Akashic clearings for folks throughout the years. And what I realized was that the Akashic records are located in the highest dimensions. And when you just speak a word into these higher dimensions, it's not that you're changing the records, but you're setting new intentions. So it's almost like you said, accelerating the process. And so I noticed I was doing this for other people all the time. Like, okay, and they would have like amazing results from these Akashic clearings. And I didn't quite understand the process at first. It was almost like I devised this my own little process and it worked, so I kept doing it. But then I started understanding the dynamics and the physics behind it, and it's like, oh, okay, just speaking words carry a lot of frequency, so it's just speaking words creates new frequency, which then changes your reality. And so I started, so when I was working with my guides, I said, okay, my guides were pushing me to do this, to go full time into spiritual work. And at the time, I was still, working my 3D job, and I was, trying to get to retirement so I can get my pension and all the benefits that go along with that. And I kept fighting with my guides. I was like, guides, I can't do this, right now. And then I kept getting sick. It was like I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was interesting. It was like almost like it was like my higher self saying, if you're serious about this, you need to really be serious about it. So it was interesting that in December 2015 was when I went public with my story. And then in January 2016, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I think it was almost like my guide saying, okay, you can either check out and not do the mission, or you can be full on board. And like I said, I
Wow.
fought with my guides for, I would say, 3 or 4 years on this. And finally, I realized, okay, guides, I do want to be part of the mission. I am fully on board. And then that was when I started my cancer, recovery journey, which took about 10 months. So I didn't really do a whole lot spiritually during that time because I was focused on my healing.
Mm.
And then I kept fighting with my guides, and I had like one thing after another. I was diagnosed with hyperparathyroidism. I had to be flown out to Tampa to have specialized surgery. This is not thyroid, this is parathyroid, which is a whole different animal. But they found 3 tumors on 3 of my 4 parathyroids. So
Wow.
so now I only have one little parathyroid left. But
The guides were really taking you through some
yeah, they
lessons.
put me through the ringer. I tell you what. And then I had sleep apnea. I was severely obese. A lot of that was, I think, just through unresolved emotions. I worked in a very toxic work environment, and I should have left, long, long time ago. But you got your 3D family telling you, oh, you got to stick it out. It's a good government job. You're going to get your retirement benefits, so I was trying to do the right thing, which was actually the wrong thing. But then I finally, I told my husband. My husband was one of those people that didn't want me to retire, and so back in 2018, I told him I'm retiring in March 2019. I know it's early, but you can divorce me if you want, but I have to do this. I have to
Yeah.
do this. Okay.
Because you were burnt out
I was
or
burnt out. I was sick. I was falling apart. I said, I need to be on my spiritual path. And my husband was so worried about, oh, you're going to lose your regular income and we're going to have to scrimp and save and budget. And I said, I'm not worried about the money. I said, the universe is going to take care of us. I mean, I'm not worried about it, and sure enough, I've done a lot better, I do better financially now than I did when I was working full time,
Do you feel
so.
that is because when we truly step into our soul's work, then the universe compensates us in ways that are unimaginable, that we couldn't be having been compensated that way if we were doing another thing?
Oh, absolutely. No, you hit the nail on the head. It's because once we're in alignment with our path, the money just comes in because you're doing it with joy, you're happy, you're excited about what you're doing. And so the universe energetically responds to that and is going to support you financially, in that sense. I would say my income quadrupled after I left um, county government work. My husband was amazed. He was doing my taxes and he was like, "Oh my God." He's like, "Every year just keeps like, expanding."
It'll continue to multiply. You
Yeah,
know
no,
why,
it's
Debbie?
just
Because
like, I wouldn't say I'm a millionaire or anything, but no, I'm just saying, wow, this is really amazing, but I think a lot of it is because, and I see this a lot with my clients, they're afraid, oh, do I make that great step and do what I really love doing because I got to make a living, I got to pay bills. And I said, don't worry about the bills, just make that leap, and that's what I did. I made the leap. And when I did make the leap, getting to the point of this whole story, I told my guides, okay, you guys want me to do the mission. Okay. You want me to do the mission. I'm willing to do the mission. I'm here. I'm willing to do it. But you got to help me out because I am 70, 80 pounds overweight and I'm I'm a mess and I can't do this anymore. I won't be able to do this unless I get healthy. So you got to direct me you know, to the right treatments or remedies or whatever to help me get healthy. So in June 2020, I had bariatric surgery. That was what my guides led me to. I was one of those people. I dieted. I tried so many diets, and I couldn't lose weight. If anything, I'd be on a diet, I would gain weight. Okay. And so bariatric surgery was kind of like, maybe seemed extreme, this was before Ozempic and all the other remedies that we have now, but um, so it might have seemed extreme, but I had tried everything. It was the end of the road. It was like, and I didn't even know if I was a candidate. I just thought, well, I'm going to go talk to because I kept, my guides kept showing me ads for this bariatric center in Lone Tree, which is only like 20 miles from where I live. And I was like, I don't know if I'm a candidate for that. And they kept showing it to me. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to call them. And I was in tears. I remember I talked to the receptionist and I was in tears. I said, I am fat and I need help. I need some help. And she says, don't
yeah.
worry, we'll get you in with our best doctor. And the doctor was amazing. He was a Christian, just very devoted to what does. And he's the type of doctor that will pray with you before you have surgery. What doctor does that? But he was just amazing. And so Dr. Joshua Long, thank you very much. I'm calling you.
Shout out, Mr.
Shout out
Long,
to Dr.
Dr.
Joshua
Long.
Long in Lone Tree, Colorado, because he really helped me on my journey, and his whole team did. Actually, it wasn't just him, but I did end up losing 75 pounds and managed to keep most of it off. So that in itself, I think, helped reverse a lot of the other health issues I had. I had sleep apnea, prediabetes, fatty liver disease. I had it all. I was a freaking mess. And, but that was the intentions I set in the records, was that, you know what, if I'm going to be on this planet, I have to be healthy. I cannot do the spiritual work without being healthy. So that's kind of how it all came about. So it's kind of an example of when you're passionate about what you do and when you're able to, I think, just really commit to it, you can make things happen. Miracles will occur, you know.
Yeah.
So
That's a great lesson. And
it
also
is.
about the commitment is knowing what, or remembering the mission and
Yeah.
sticking with it, showing up, because when we show up, that's when reality around us starts to shift.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
wanted to talk to you about the importance of, you've talked about Atlantis before and some of the civilizations that fell, and how their imbalance between their spiritual nature and their technology. And Dolores also has talked about this in her books, how that led to the fall of these civilizations. They were not able to come to this balance between those two things. And right now we're seeing a emergence of advanced technology, artificial intelligence. So how do we not repeat the same mistake that past civilizations took and begin to create that balance between spirituality and technology?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one that I've also contemplated, I think, personally a lot, because we just see the same patterns over and over again with civilizations rising and then falling, over and over again. So what there's the lesson of Lemuria and Atlantis, and so there's a template, so there's a basic universal template that I would say we all follow as beings, as uh, children of the universe, and that's the masculine feminine template, the dark and light template. And so Lemuria and Atlantis were established on planet Earth to be the representations of Mother Goddess consciousness. So this was a civilization that was Mother Goddess consciousness, that would be the Lemurian, and then the Father God consciousness was the Atlantean civilization. So Lemuria was meant to be more focused on spirituality and on very low technology, just all, frequency, working with energetics. And then Atlantis was all about technology. And both civilizations were amazing civilizations in their own right. So, in the beginning, Atlantis was very aligned spiritually. They were, you know, they, they followed, I think, the templates of the Lyrans and the Pleiadians. I would say the Pleiadians really got that balance down where they were very technologically advanced, but yet they were highly spiritual at the same time. So initially, Atlantis was very aligned with that, and they were doing great. And then, meanwhile, Lemuria was kind of doing their own thing. So Lemuria they didn't feel a need to create technology because they were able to manifest everything energetically. So, what did so at the time, they felt that we don't need technology. We're doing fine on this other side of the planet. So, the cautionary tale is that one cannot exist without the other. Okay, so this is just my perspective. So maybe other people might have a different perspective on this. But the downfall of Lemuria occurred because they didn't have the technology to defend themselves. And the same exact thing happened with the Lyrans when they were attacked by the Draconians. Okay, so we see this pattern happening over and over and over again. That's why the Syrian people in Syria were like, you know what, we got to protect ourselves. We need to ramp up our technology because we don't want the same thing that happened to our ancestors, the Lyrans, happen to us. So they were on board with the technology, but the
Yeah.
Lemurians were like, you know what, we don't need it. We got our energies to protect us. Well, you guys are living in a physical reality, and sometimes there's going to be invaders, so.
What type of technology, like when we talk about technology in such, ancient times, what type of technology have you seen in the records that they were, utilizing at the time?
Who's this? The Lemurians or the Atlanteans?
Atlanteans, or any of these civilizations that had advanced
Oh
technology.
gosh, they had technology even beyond what we could even imagine. I think a lot of sound frequency, levitating things through sound frequency. I know a lot of people talk about the Egyptians having that technology too. Uh, the Lemurians were able to shift reality. They were able to walk through different realities just by using frequency. So this in itself is a technology, but it wasn't a physical technology. Okay, so um, whereas the Atlanteans had the physical technology, they had the machines and everything else that enabled them to build this beautiful civilization that they had. So, excuse me. Let me just get a little drink here.
Water break.
Mm-hmm. So getting into their technologies, it wasn't that the Lemurians got complacent like the Lyrans did, but I just think they didn't think they needed it. They just thought, well, we're able to manifest everything we need with what we have, so we don't need weapons. We don't need, big battleships or anything to that. And that was their downfall because when the Atlanteans attacked them, they didn't have any ways of defending themselves. So most of them perished, and that's what happened to the Lyrans too, millions and millions of years ago. Now, the Lemurians some of them did survive, and I think they brought some of their secrets. And I know Mount Shasta is a location of a Lemurian secret stronghold, and there's other locations throughout the Pacific Rim where there's still Lemurian technology that's being hidden. But getting back to the Atlanteans, so a lot of people ask, why did the Atlanteans attack the Lemurians? What was the purpose behind it? And you got to realize that a lot of civilizations go through this. They go through this bell curve where they advance and they get really arrogant, I guess, and where they're at, and then they get corrupted. So we see this pattern over and over again too. So the Atlantean government eventually got corrupted by negative Orion factions, negative Maldekian factions, negative factions from other star systems that wanted to see the downfall of Lemuria. So they convinced the Atlanteans that the Lemurians were their enemies and convinced them to go into war with them, which was really, really sad. I mean, we see that happen even now where we have these different countries that are at war with each other. And why are they at war with each other? Because they got convinced by their governments that they're each other's enemies, and they're not even, it's not even anything that has to do with anything. It's just, I don't know. I get frustrated with that, really. But so the Atlanteans got too attached to their technology, and they lost their way with spirituality. So that's the cautionary tale. That's the cautionary. You got to be hand in hand with both. They got to both be balanced, because otherwise you're not going to have a successful civilization. And we've seen it happen over and over again, with even the Egyptians and with the Roman Empire and with, some of the civilizations in China and in Asia. I mean, just all throughout planet Earth, really. But thank you for that question, because it's a cautionary tale that a lot of us need to keep in mind, that technology is good, but not at the expense of totally letting go of your spiritual connections. It's technology is not going to save us.
Yeah.
It's just a tool.
Yeah. You mentioned the light template, the dark template. Right now, where we are right now in this moment of ascension, we hear a lot, there's a battle of light and dark, and then we have these light workers working for the light. And I think if we look at that from a perspective of non-duality and like neutrality, what is the role of the dark agenda and the light agenda right now at this time?
That's a great question. I thought about that a lot too, because it seems like, I'm going to go back to Lyra again for a moment, but I always wondered why, when the co-creators created the Lyran system and all the planets, like, why did they do it right next to Draco? They knew the Draconians were there, it's like, why they, and I think it was meant, it was created that way on purpose, that we're not able to have a multitude of experiences if we're not able to tap into the dark aspects of ourselves. And so I think, in a way, not that they, wanted things to be as catastrophic as they were during the Lyran Draconian Wars, but maybe in a way they wanted to have some interaction between the dark beings and the light beings, so that way both can grow and evolve, so the purpose of us going through the light and the dark and duality consciousness here on Earth is to help us to grow and evolve. We don't grow and evolve when things are just hunky-dory all the time. It doesn't really work. You have to go through some adversity. You have to go through some dark times, maybe even connect with very dark aspects of yourself in order to grow. And I see this a lot now with a lot of light workers. And a lot of light workers are focused on their own healing. They're trying to clear old karmic patterns from the past. So they're doing massive clearing work and shadow work. And I applaud that, because that's what's going to help us get to the fifth dimension. We can't carry this baggage with us into the fifth dimension. All this baggage that we're carrying from past lives, and all the karmic patterns, all the soul contracts, the messed up soul contracts some of us may have. It's almost like we have to be able to clear that out before we can step into the hallowed halls of the fifth dimension, because you can't carry that kind of negativity when you're in a reality where you're connected with everything, because you're just going to infect everything like a virus. Okay. So it's just not going to happen. So the whole lesson of that is, we got to be really in love consciousness. And I would say a lot of us are definitely doing the work, like a lot of us light workers, we really are earnestly trying to do the work to get to that point. And it's not that, you got to be perfect. I'm not trying to paint that picture at all, but try to, be in love consciousness as much as possible. And that's one of the keys of getting ourselves into the fifth dimension. So that's, part of that is, being of service to others kind of thing, that I mentioned before. But yeah, that's a really interesting question, because it's one I thought about a lot. Like, why do we have so much suffering here? Why is everything so hard? Like, just living in 3D life, it's hard. I mean, it's like everything takes like 10 steps just to do something. And it's like, we're used to coming from star systems where you could just think of something and it just manifests, So I see like a lot of these little star seeds that, maybe this is their first lifetime on Earth. And I love little star seeds. The young kids, or the 20 somethings, they're kind of like deer in the headlights, like, wow, I didn't realize how hard this was going to be. I remember in Pleiades, it was so easy. Everything was love and light there. And now we're in this reality where got to work hard to make anything happen, So, yeah. I think a lot of us go through that, where we forget that we have the power of manifestation. Yeah. So another lesson there for all of us.
Yeah, and on your YouTube channel, you share a lot of your Akashic readings for people, because it is really useful to see the patterns that we all, the threads that connect us.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you would be open to opening my records for a moment and seeing what lessons may come through for the audience, because we've been also connecting, the people that are tuning into the show have been connecting with my energy. and seeing what may come through
Yeah,
in
let's
terms of
do
a
it.
lesson that they can take with them.
Yeah, let me just grab my little notebook and my little stuff here so I can
Beautiful.
get us. So you want me to do like an Akashic reading or?
Whatever you feel open to right now.
Okay, yeah, let's do it. I just need your full name, Emilio, and your birth date. So, if you
All
could,
right.
so
So
is it? Do you
it's
have a middle name? It's Emilio.
no,
No, just
Emilio
Ortiz.
Ortiz. Yeah, Ortiz. And my birthday is July 17th, so 0717, 1998.
Oh wow, you are a young starseed. You're young. You're one of those little starseeds. Oh, no, you're definitely much more evolved. But no, I love that. What a beautiful
Mm.
birthday too. I was also born in July, but a little later in the month.
So
So
you're a Leo?
I'm a Leo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're a Cancer, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Cancer.
you got that really kind of fluid Cancerian energy. That's really
Mm.
beautiful.
That water
That
element,
water energy.
water elementals.
Yeah, yeah, that definitely. Well, let me just go ahead and do a quick rundown with the records. We'll connect with your records. We'll do this right, and then let me just go ahead and grab this, and then we'll get started.
And this is also a prayer that people can use to open their own records, right?
Oh,
The one that you're
absolutely.
about to show us.
Yeah, absolutely. Only the highest vibrations of love and light can be in the space, and all objects in the space for the highest good of Emilio Ortiz and myself for this reading today. All other energies must leave now. I call in the highest level of the divine that knows that love is the power and the truth from which we read. The highest level guides and angels of Emilio Ortiz and myself to help us with this reading. Archangel Michael, hold this space for us. And so it is. And so we do acknowledge the forces of light, asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth as it is revealed for our highest good and the highest good of everyone that's connected to us. O Holy Spirit of God, help me to know Emilio Ortiz in the light of the Akashic Records, to see Emilio Ortiz through the eyes of the Lords of the Records, and enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones have for Emilio Ortiz. Okay, the records are now open. All right, let me check in for a moment. Okay, all right. So, Emilio, I see that you're connected with several star systems. So you didn't just come. I mean, you maybe originated from one, but you've been in several. And the systems that came up that I saw for you was Lyra, and then I think Sirius B kind of hid out there for a while. Pleiades, and then I do see Mintanka. You have very strong Mintankan energy. Like I think you spent some time there. Mintanka, if people don't know where that is, that's one of the Orion belt stars. And Mintanka had a lot of watery planets. It was very watery. Sirius B also very watery. You do kind of carry this water elemental energy. What I saw with you, this is really interesting, is that you didn't start off as humanoid. You started off more of a kind of an elemental, a representation of an elemental being. So when you were in Lyra, you weren't necessarily uh, in human form. When you were in Lyra, you were more like a water elemental. I don't know. That's why I think you feel so connected to the Cancerian energy, because that's basically what you're mostly connected with. So during your time in Lyra, and I think you were in Avion, that was the planet that I'm seeing. So Avion is one of the paradise planets that got destroyed during the Lyran Wars. And what I saw with you is that you were basically maintaining the frequency for the water element as an elemental. And so your form was more like a water sprite, or I don't want to say merman. That wasn't quite what I'm getting, but more like a water sprite, kind of a flowy kind of. You had like somewhat of a humanoid form, but it was flowy. It was more watery, and but your origination point, honestly, was you were part of the Andromeda Galaxy group. So you were part of that group that hung out in Galactic Center for a while, and then decided, hey, as a higher dimensional being, I want to experience what physical life is like. And because I have this elemental Andromedan energy, I'm not going to incarnate as human. I'm going to incarnate as an elemental. So you carry this elemental energy. Um, and so during the wars, interestingly enough, the elementals that were in Avion actually got rescued. The Avalon elementals perished with their planet, but the Avion elementals, they were like, you know what, we're getting the heck out of Dodge. We're gonna we're gonna go with everybody else because we don't want to get destroyed. So the starship that you got evacuated on ended up in Sirius B, and you went through several lifetimes in Sirius B as an amphibian type of being. I don't know if you're like a big swimmer. Do you love to swim? Is your family like into swimming? Because I see that you feel very comfortable in water. Like you're just like,
Yeah, I grew up in a swim team when I
okay,
was living in Texas. Yeah.
okay, totally makes sense. There's no accidents in the records, so because you just feel like almost more at home in the water than you do in on land. And probably even now, like you probably feel like, if you had the choice, you would prefer to live near water. Like, you would, that would be like your ideal living situation, would be like, maybe getting a house on the lake, or a house, on the ocean, or something to that extent. So you had several lifetimes in Sirius, and then for some reason, I don't know why, but you decided you wanted to have human experiences. So the most humanoid location there was in the galaxy during this time was the Pleiades. And so you chose to incarnate in Maya and Merope. So you almost, I don't mean this in the bad sense, but you almost have more of a feminine quality to your soul. Like you're a very masculine looking man, and you're, very attractive looking man, but you have this very feminine quality to your soul. So you're kind of guy that girls go up to and they say, "Oh, I want to be your best friend," or maybe to your detriment. I don't know, but I don't know what your
I
sexual
can get
orient.
myself out of the friend zone pretty
Yeah,
quick.
pretty quick. Okay, that's good. That's good. But yeah, you get the girls that say, "Gosh, I feel so comfortable with you." Like you're like, um, but I think it's because you carry that feminine energy. But and you're very comfortable with it. It's not like you're, oh, I don't want to associate with anything feminine. you're just very comfortable. You're actually very well balanced, but I don't want to make the point that you're not a well balanced individual. You have a very well balanced masculine and feminine energy, but you're very much in tune with your feminine energy, which I think makes you very attractive to women because they feel comfortable with you. They don't feel like, you're out to, you know, get them or, use them or anything like that. So talking about Maya, let's talk about Maya. So Maya is a little star system in the Pleiades, and Maya is amazing. A lot of indigenous groups on planet Earth claim to have ancestry from the Pleiades. So this includes the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Incas, the Native Americans, and the two systems they were most associated with was Maya and Merope. So I don't know if in your ancestry, I'm guessing you're from Colombia originally or you're connected with Colombia. There's a lot of
Yeah.
Inca influence there. So your genetics probably carries some indigenous genetics, in addition to the Spanish. Okay. So, so these groups associated with Maya, and so the concepts of shamanism comes from Maya. What shamanism is the combination of spirituality with nature, and that's what these groups were bringing to Earth. Okay, these indigenous groups, that's what they were trying to bring to Earth was, hey, we live in a natural reality. We need to be aligned with the spiritual aspects of that natural reality. And that's a lot of the work that you're going to be doing. I think this platform that you currently have right now is a really great platform because you can share a lot of concepts and ideas with a lot of people, almost immediately. But I would say on your own personal journey, I do think you're going to be working much more with the shamanistic aspects, that you're going to be bringing that in from your genetic ancestry, both I would say extraterrestrial and terrestrial. So Merope was also a system that was also a plant or star system within the Pleiades. And I do get that you're a natural psychologist. That um, I think the reason why the girls love talking to you is because you're very wise for your age, and you have solutions to things. Like you intuitively pick up on other people's frequencies quite a bit, and it's almost like you transmute the frequencies without them even asking you to do it. Like you just automatically do it. Like people automatically feel better around you, or they feel like healed, or maybe more on a mental level or a emotional level, but these were, I think, qualities you're bringing in from Merope. And then I think as part of your journey, you chose to have incarnations on Mintaka. I think you were called to do some service for a civilization that needed help, and Orion needed a lot of help, and you wanted to go back to your watery roots, so you chose Mintaka, which is one of the three belt stars, because it had the most watery planets. You were humanoid in those lifetimes, but you were always living near water. You were always in the water. So Mintaka is an amazing star system. It's probably the highest vibrational star system in Orion. It was the location of the Galactic Federation headquarters. For at least the Orion sector, so it wasn't their ultimate headquarters. I think that was in Andromeda, but their Orion sector headquarters was in Mintaka, and it was a civilization that was very much in tune with family and with community. And so those are also two things that are very important to you, is developing the sense of family, the sense of, and not just, family within your earthly family, but family as a whole. And I think that's part of the purpose of your podcast is to create the sense of family, connecting people, creating community amongst, those of us that came here to be of the light, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up since we are running out of time, but I hope this gave you some insights. I don't know if you connected with any of it, but
I did a
yeah.
lot of it. There's one thing in particular that I just wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
What is my connection to lions? Because I've been so
Lyra.
connected with that animal.
Lyra. As an elemental, you probably had incarnations, not just of the water being, but also sometimes maybe you might have had an incarnation here and there as a lion being or as a feline. So, and you did that your first physical incarnations were in Lyra. So lions are very important to you. Yeah. It's interesting. My first physical incarnations were in Lyra too, even though I was an Arcturian being, but, and I was born.
Is that where we knew each other from?
Yeah, probably, yeah. Probably from Mintaka too. I was there for a while. I was actually in probably all the places you were. I was there too. So we probably knew each other for a long time. I have no doubt about that. Actually, I think we all did. I think we all have contracts with each other. Hey, let's do this for planet Earth. Let's go do the Earth thing. So
is this some of our newer experiences on Earth for both of us?
What's that?
Is this one of our newer experiences on Earth for both of us?
Yeah, I would say that your frequency, you carry a really high frequency, so I don't think you've had a lot of prior incarnations on Earth. And if you did, you could probably count them on one hand. So, and it was the same for me as well. I didn't have many. That's why when I was a kid, I was like deer in the headlights. I was one of those young star seeds. Like, what is this? This is a crazy reality, So, I don't know if you felt that way when you were growing up, but I sure did. I was like, I don't even think I remember half my childhood because it was. I think I just couldn't integrate. I couldn't integrate for a long time. But
too much novelty.
Yeah, it was different. It's definitely different. Especially when I was born in the '60s, that was different. Okay. I think nowadays, like you were born in '98. I think spirituality is starting to become more of a thing. It's starting to become more mainstream. So, people are starting to integrate, some of these spiritual concepts. So maybe it wasn't as extreme for you as it was for me, but yeah, it's different. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's an interesting question because I see that a lot with the third wavers like you. Like you guys are coming in with such high frequencies with your chakras all wide open. That there's a reason why they call you guys the rainbow children, because you got the chakras wide open and you're ready to, create a new earth, so you're just like, you know what? I don't feel very connected to anything here. I don't have much in the way of karma here because I haven't had very many past lives here, and I see that more of a trend with the third wavers. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what.
Yeah. And it's like, how does knowing that we have this star, genetics and influence, how does that impact our life here on Earth?
Yeah. I'm going to answer that, but I just want to do the closing prayer just so I can shut down your records. Otherwise, I'll be connected to it all day.
Oh, no, we don't want that.
No, it's not that I don't want to be connected to your records, but it's just I get constant downloads, and then it's like, not a good thing.
Go to sleep and start seeing my
I start seeing your past lives. That's happened to me before, actually, where I've done readings for people, and I forgot to close down their records. And I'm seeing other people's, memories, and I'm like, this is freaky. Let me close this out. So let's do that little closing prayer. I would like to thank the masters, teachers, and loved ones for their love and compassion. I would like to thank the lords of the Akashic Records for their point of view. I would like to thank the Holy Spirit of Light for all knowledge and healing. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. The records are now closed. Amen. Your energy goes with you. My energy stays with me. But to get to your question, you asked how does this impact us today? Well, it I think gives us a greater understanding of who we truly are throughout the multitude of lifetimes, whether that be past lifetimes, multidimensional lifetimes, or even future timelines. And so we're able to integrate that into our current reality. And for a lot of people, they say an Akashic reading is, particularly a galactic Akashic reading, is very life changing for them. Changes their life. It just they start, I think, realizing their connection with the divine, their connection with the higher aspects of themselves. And so it empowers them to move forward in their life, to throw abandon to the wind and just say, you know what? I'm this magnificent being. I've had these magnificent past lives. Maybe I was a dragon in a past life. Maybe I was a lion being. Maybe I was a water elemental. What is it that I can't do? So I think just that realization, and it acts as an activation. So a lot of times what happens to folks when they have an Akashic reading is it activates their soul memories. So they start getting their own downloads of memories, and then they start connecting with their guides, which the guides are actually higher aspects of ourselves. It's like that's why they help us out so much. But so they start connecting with their guides, they connect with their angels, they connect with their star families, and so it really accelerates their spiritual development, on the planet. So yeah, excellent question. This is why I'm so passionate about this work. It's why I'm like on this mission to get this into the mainstream right now. I want to get it into mainstream media. That's my mission, because I want to go on Good Morning America and talk about the Akashic Records. I think
Dr.
it's going to
Phil.
blow people's minds. I keep pushing for that because
I don't think we're far off from that,
no, we're
because I
not.
think
We're
that's
not.
a lot of the purpose of these types of shows, is to plant the seeds for then the mainstream media outlets. They just follow attention. Like,
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
just put it that way.
Getting
They follow
interest.
where interest is. They follow where engagement is. So if they're seeing shows like these grow, and they're seeing the interest is there, of course, they're going to
Oh,
want to have
totally.
that a little bit for themselves.
Oh, totally. Yeah, no, they want the high ratings. So and I'm thankful to platforms like Gaia TV and other platforms like Portal to Ascension, that is getting that information, and even like your podcast, it's getting that information out there. And getting that to the mainstream so that more and more people can connect, and maybe we can get this ascension thing going, get to the fifth dimension a little faster. So that's why I'm so passionate about this, because I just feel like this information is life changing. It was life changing for me. It was life changing for a lot of my clients. So I hope that little reading helps you on your journey, and gives you, I think, some things to explore, in your,
Yeah.
yeah.
And even one of your clients has been on this show and created waves. We've had 2 conversations together. I'm flying with her to Egypt next month. That's Alunia. She did a reading with you. She's the one that brought up your name for the very first time for me. So shout out to her for introducing sort of me to you. We end every show with a segment called The Final Trio, which are just rapid fire questions we ask at the very end. Before that, where would you send people to connect with you, your work, and all of the different projects that you have going on right now?
Just mainly my website. So I would say DebbieSolaris.com. So just DebbieSolaris.com. I'm also on social media. You can find me on Instagram. I have a pretty decent following on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not with TikTok. I just can't hang with TikTok. I'm too much of a boomer, I guess. But But I do have a YouTube channel. So you mentioned, some of the readings I did that I created into video. So if you want to see what an Akashic reading is like, I would highly suggest that you check it out on my channel, my YouTube channel. Just a caveat for people out there, I get requests every day, but right at this moment, I'm not doing personal readings. It just got to be really overwhelming. The demand was crazy. I think my assistant said I had like 3,500, 4,000 people on my waiting list. And I was just like,
You're gonna have to multiply yourself into 100 Debbies
I
and just
know
go out
exactly.
there.
It's like I'm not quite there yet. Okay, but yeah, I just couldn't do that anymore. So right now I'm focused on sharing the information more to the masses and teaching others how to do what I do. So I do offer a training every spring, usually April and May. We offer an 8-week long Galactic Akashic reading training, and we've trained hundreds of people on how to do what I do. So it's definitely replicatable. That's always a
Yeah.
good thing.
Beautiful. We'll leave everything down in the show notes where people
Yeah.
can go find you. And for the very last 3 questions that we ask at the very end, the first 2 are personalized to the guests, and the last one we ask at the end of every show. So the first one I had for you is, what connects all of us right now here on the planet?
I would say our divine connection. We're all soul shards of source. All of us, we all have a consciousness. We're all, whether, we lean more towards the dark or the light, we're all connected. So I would say it's our connection with source, our connection with the divine.
And the second one is, what does it really mean to be a human on Earth?
And that's a great question. I think being human on Earth, it gives us the opportunities to be imperfect, to go through lessons, to go through um, maybe some adversities, some hard experiences, but still stay connected to the divine, still stay connected to our spiritual aspects. So I love the saying that, I don't know if Dolores Cannon came up with this saying or who did, but we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And I totally align with that. It's like being in this physical meat suit allows us just to experience emotions, to experience a variety of different experiences and lessons, and allows us to really propel ourselves into the next spiritual evolution. So it's very important to be human. It's a lot of us fought to be in. I know that sounds crazy to a lot of starseeds that wonder why they're here, but a lot of us have fought to be here. And
We got the golden ticket, and
we
now we're
did,
here, and we
yeah,
gotta
we
we
did.
gotta appreciate it. We gotta make the best of
Better
it and
than
stay true.
America's Got Talent. We got that golden buzzer.
Willy Wonka out
Yeah,
here giving
we're
out
here. We're
golden
here.
tickets.
Might as well
Debbie, the
enjoy it while
last.
you're here. And then you had one more question for me, or was that
Yes, we call it the time capsule question
okay?
because we ask this at the end of every show, and it requires us to travel out a little bit into the future, around 15 to 20 years. And I chose out those time frames because I feel into that is going to be a time where the younger generations of today will be stepping into leadership positions around the world. And just like any great leader had mentors, they had guidance, they had wisdom from people that came before them. So you were given the opportunity to leave a time capsule for these leaders that they will open in 20 years down the line. And inside of this time capsule, basically you're going to equip them with whatever tools, knowledge, advice necessary to carry out the new Earth and lead into the future. It could be anything physical or non-physical. It could just be like an energy. It could be a portal even to some other galaxy, whatever you can think of. But what would you include inside of the time capsule for the next generation of leaders?
Well, I'm working on something like that right now. So I'm working on just the be-all, end-all book on galactic history and star races. And I think I have a co-writer that's helping me with this, and I think we've included like almost 30 or 40 star races in this book.
Wow.
So more than just the typical ones that what we always talk about. So there's some very kind of exclusive. I don't know if exclusive isn't the right word, but races that we don't normally talk about or see. We're going to explore the records and find out more about them and include them in this book. And so I want to leave this book, and the reason why I'm working on this is to give something for the future generations. So this is kind of going to be like my legacy work, like, hey, it's going to be beautifully illustrated. It's going to have QR codes that connects you to videos you can watch. So, this is what I'm going to leave for the future generations. And then the other thing I want to leave is also this sense of that we're connected. That our star families have always been here. They've always been watching over us, and let's not forget that we have these connections, that go even beyond Earth. And I do think in the future it's going to become a mainstream thing that, we are going to have contact, that everybody's going to know about it. The government's not going to be able to, the governments of the planet aren't going to be able to hide it anymore. And that's when we're going to see things really evolve and change, to that point. Yeah. So,
is that a potential you saw in the records?
Mm-hmm. I'm thinking end of this decade. End of this decade, fast. Early next decade. That's just around the corner. Yeah. And at that point, we're going to evolve rapidly. There's going to be no, hiding anything or, hiding technology. Everything's going to go out into the open. I'm just counting the days. I tell you what,
I'm excited. I'm excited.
I know, me too. I can't wait till that happens. It's like that's the whole purpose of being here, is to reconnect with our star families. So interesting how our civilizations have tried to hide that from us for many, many centuries, and maybe even thousands of years, and not hidden anymore. Nope, it's gonna propel us to the next level. So, I'm excited for the younger generation, because you guys are going to see so much change. You're going to be creating change. So I think, so I'm glad there's people like you that's going to be one of the leaders of the new Earth. It's going to be guiding people to that point. And, hopefully those of us that are, first and second waivers, we will have provided enough of a pathway, so.
Yeah. Because without legacies from people like you, we wouldn't be, as that question entails, well equipped to be leaders. So honoring you, Debbie, for the work that you're doing. And I'm really, really grateful that we came into contact, and I feel like we'll continue to unfold these transmissions and connections.
Yeah, no.
And super excited for that book that you're putting together.
I want to see galactic history be a topic in universities and schools. Like even
let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's make it like a normal. No more American history or European history, although those are important to know too. But let's make a galactic history be a topic that kids will learn about. So, along with meditation and working with chakras and all the other good stuff that I think will really help people along on their path. I'm looking forward to this continuation of our journeys together and beyond. So thank you for having me. This has been a great podcast. Thank you.
Of course. Anytime. And I'm excited for the next one.
Yeah, thank you.